What if I told you the secret of greatness isn't what you own? It's how you act when your world is falling apart. Think about it for a second. Have you ever seen a true winner lose control? Scream? Panic? Lash out? No. They stay still, composed, unshakable. And here's the truth no one wants to admit. The world doesn't believe in you until you prove that nothing can break you. People respect those who walk through chaos with their eyes locked on destiny. Because as long as you're reacting to everything, you're being controlled by everything. And if you're being controlled, you're not leading. If you're exploding, you're not building. If you're shaken, you're losing. But there is a power, a superpower really, and it starts with one mental shift. Act as if nothing bothers you. Not because you're cold, but because you're trained. Because your mind knows the truth. Master your inner world or be a slave to the outer one. That's exactly what Napoleon Hill discovered after studying the most powerful men in history. They weren't just smart or lucky or relentless. They were unshakable. And today you'll learn how to become one of them. How to build the mindset that separates the forgotten from the unstoppable. Most people lose the battle before it even begins. Not because they're weak, but because they were never taught the cost of reacting to everything. You get angry and suddenly your reputation cracks. You feel offended, and now your energy is drained. You're jealous, and just like that, you've stopped focusing on your own path. Every time you react emotionally, you give away power. Power you'll never get back. Imagine trying to build an empire while your hands are full of emotional baggage. It's impossible. And here's the dangerous part. You don't even realize it's happening. You think you're defending your pride when really, you're sabotaging your future. You think you're standing up for yourself, but all you're doing is standing in your own way. That's the trap. The enemy isn't outside. It's inside. It's the storm of reactions happening in your mind. Every second you let fear, anger, or insecurity make decisions for you. You lose deals not because you're unskilled, but because you couldn't stay calm. You lose relationships not because you're unworthy, but because your emotions took the wheel. You lose focus not because you're lazy, but because you gave your energy to distractions. Reacting is expensive. It costs you peace. It costs you progress. It costs you power. So the question is, how much longer are you willing to pay that price? Why does everything hit so hard? Why do insults linger and small losses feel like the end of the world? The answer is simple and brutal because your ego is in control. The ego wants to be seen. It wants to be validated. It wants applause, likes, recognition, revenge. And the moment it doesn't get what it wants, it screams. That scream is what we call reaction. But in reality, it's just a desperate attempt to protect a fragile self-image. You feel disrespected? That's your ego whispering, they should admire me. You feel left out? That's your ego crying, I should be chosen. You feel jealous? That's your ego shouting, I deserve more than them. This is not who you are. This is who you've been trained to be by a culture obsessed with attention. A world that teaches you, if they don't see you, you don't exist. But here's the truth. Real power doesn't beg to be noticed. It moves in silence. It builds in secret. It waits patiently while the world talks nonsense. The moment you stop seeking validation, you start owning yourself. You stop living for applause and start living with purpose. And in that shift, you discover something life-changing. You are not your emotions. You are the observer of them. You don't have to react. You can watch. You can wait. You can respond with intention, not impulse. That is mental strength. That is self-mastery. And that is the foundation of becoming unshakable. Napoleon Hill didn't write Think and Grow Rich just to talk about money. He wrote it to teach control. Control over thought, control over emotion, control over self. One of his most powerful teachings is this. You have absolute control over but one thing, your own thoughts. Everything else? Chaos, noise, distraction. But your thoughts, that's your kingdom. That's your battlefield. And Hill makes it clear, if you can't control your thoughts, you can't control your future. The mind, if left unchecked, becomes a saboteur. It worries, it complains, it reacts, it imagines the worst. But when you train it, it becomes a weapon. It becomes a compass pointing toward clarity, power, and purpose. Hill spent decades studying the world's richest, most successful men: Carnegie, Ford, Edison, Rockefeller. And what did they all have in common? Not luck, not privilege, but mindset. They trained their minds to obey them, not betray them. That's the secret no school teaches. You weren't taught how to sit with discomfort, how to let an insult pass without responding, how to stay calm while others panic. But that's what separates amateurs from giants. Hill called it definiteness of purpose, the ability to lock your mind on your goal and let nothing, no insult, no fear, no chaos, pull you off that path. This is not just theory. This is survival, because in a world that profits from your reactions, self-control is the ultimate rebellion. Let's make something clear. Acting like nothing bothers you doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you choose not to let the world dictate your energy. That's called strategic indifference, and it's a weapon disguised as calm. Most people are ruled by emotion, but emotion is not the enemy. Reaction is. The goal is not to be emotionless. The goal is to be emotionally trained. Think of it like this. When a storm hits, the tree with shallow roots falls. But the oak, the one deeply grounded, it bends, it sways, but it stands. That's the mindset you build when you stop reacting to every wind that blows. You can't control the chaos, but you can control how you carry yourself in it. And that's the trick most never learn. They confuse silence with weakness, but real power is quiet. Real strength is invisible until it's needed. When you walk into a room and your energy is calm, focused, untouchable, people notice. They don't know why, but they respect it, because what's rare is revered, and what's rare today, a man who doesn't flinch. Practice it. Let the insult pass. Let the delay happen. Let the disrespect bounce off you like rain on steel. Not because you don't care, but because you care more about your purpose than your pride. You're not here to win every argument. You're here to win your future. In 1857, the American economy collapsed. Banks failed. Businesses closed. Panic spread like wildfire. Most men froze. Some broke. Many lost everything. But not John D. Rockefeller. At just 18 years old, Rockefeller was starting out in business. He watched as grown men ran in fear, making desperate decisions, selling low, begging for survival. But Rockefeller didn't panic. He observed, he studied, he learned, and most importantly, he stayed calm. Years later, he would call that moment one of the greatest lessons of his life, because while everyone else was reacting emotionally, he was planning strategically. He understood something powerful. Panic is the breeding ground of mistakes. Calm is the breeding ground of opportunity. And because he mastered his emotions, he could see clearly. He could act deliberately. He didn't just survive the crisis. He used it to build an empire. While others were selling, he was buying. While others were breaking down, he was building up. And that's how he became the richest man in modern history. Not by luck, not by inheritance, but by choosing to stay grounded when the world shook. That's the model, not just for wealth, but for life. When chaos hits, don't panic. Position. Be like Rockefeller. When the storm comes, you don't run. You rise. Here's the truth. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your training. So if you want to act as if nothing bothers you, you need to train for it. Every single day. This isn't about pretending. It's about rewiring your response system so your default becomes power, not panic. Here's how to start. Mental rehearsal. Before the world tests you, you test yourself. Visualize the pressure, the insult, the chaos. Then imagine yourself staying calm, breathing deep, speaking slow, smiling slightly. Over time, your brain accepts this calmness as your new normal. Control your breath, control your state. When your breath is shallow, your mind races. When your breath is deep, your mind slows down. Pause, inhale slowly for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4. Do this every time you feel the storm rising. Mastery lives in the pause. Affirm your identity. You're not just reacting, you're reinforcing who you are. Every day, say it out loud. I am calm, I am focused, I am unshakable. Your words are bricks. Build your foundation with them. Detach from noise. Limit the junk, the endless scrolling, the negativity. Your focus is your currency. Don't spend it on what doesn't pay you back. Be intentional with what enters your mind. Practice delayed reaction. Not every moment needs a response. Let 5 seconds pass before speaking when triggered. That space, that pause, that's where your power lives. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to train like a man who values his peace more than his pride. Because when you become calm under pressure, you become rare. And in a loud, chaotic world, rarity is power. Stop seeing yourself as someone struggling to stay calm. Start seeing yourself as the calm itself. You are not the storm. You are the pillar that stands through it. From now on, you walk into rooms with quiet power. You listen more than you speak. You wait longer before reacting. And when you move with purpose. You don't chase noise, you attract respect. Because energy doesn't lie. People can feel when you're in control. And more importantly, you can feel it. This isn't about being robotic. It's about being precise. It's about knowing when to speak, when to hold, and when to act like the storm isn't even there. Let everyone else waste their lives reacting. Let them drown in drama, defend their egos, fight for nothing. Not you. You are the foundation, the unshakable core. The storm may rage, but you never bend. Every day, remind yourself, I don't react. I respond. I don't explode. I endure. I don't chase. I choose. This is your new standard, not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. And powerful men don't play by emotion. They play by strategy. Here's the part nobody talks about. Losing control doesn't just cost you moments, it can cost you your life. One emotional outburst can destroy a relationship. One poorly timed reaction can ruin a deal. One pride-driven decision can sabotage a decade of discipline. Is it worth it? Is 5 seconds of ego worth 5 years of regret? People don't lose because they're lazy. They lose because they're emotional at the wrong moment. Because they say something they can't unsay. Because they let the world decide how they feel instead of owning their own mind. That's the price of staying reactive. That's the hidden tax on emotional weakness. But here's the twist. The world is watching, always. And when it sees you calm in chaos, composed under pressure, untouchable when tested, it gives you what you want. Respect, trust, opportunity, power. Control is the currency of high-level success. Without it, you'll always be broke, no matter what's in your bank account. So now the question is simple. Are you ready to stop reacting and start rising? Decide right now that from this moment forward, you will not be ruled by emotion, that you will train your mind until calm is your default and control is your edge. Write it down. I am unshakable, not because life is easy, but because I'm built for the storm. You don't need permission. You don't need applause. You just need discipline. And it starts with one decision, to act like the man you were born to be. Calm, focused, relentless. Because success isn't about who screams the loudest. It's about who stays still the longest. Now act like you are the best and go claim your success.